Israel is a small but very dense country. For many years the focus was on road construction and the private car as the main type of transport. As a result, this created obvious problems. The main cities and the roads between them are stuck in one big traffic jam. Only in the last 10-20 years have cities taken a course for bus lines and the construction of tram lines. But these solutions don't work on an agglomeration level. To solve the transport problem, Israel actively develops railroads. This will connect the cities of the country and create a mainline transport for agglomerations. In some ways, this is similar to the Dutch railroad system, but with its own aspects and problems. That's what we are going to talk about today. In the end, I'll tell you a little life hack. The beginning of the railroads in the territory of Israel was laid by the British and Turkish governments during the periods when they controlled this territory. First lines were laid in the 19th century and connected Jaffa, Jerusalem and Haifa. Today these lines are mostly unused or have been completely rebuilt. At the same time, the old stations in Jerusalem and Haifa haven't been destroyed, but they are used as public spaces with many stores and restaurants. At the moment, the railroad operates only within Israel due to the political reasons. The total length of the network is about 750 kilometers, and it includes about 50 passenger stations. Yes, it's mostly a passenger system. 1- and 2-floor rail cars are used on the lines. Not all sections are electrified, so some roads are served by diesel trains. At the same time, the railroad is also used for cargo transportation. Tel Aviv isn't just a cultural and administrative center of Israel, with the largest agglomeration in the country. It's also a railroad center, because there are 4 main stations where you can go to any other station and direction in the country. Also, it serves as a urban mainline transport, because the distance between stations is about 1-2 kilometers. As a rule, such distance is used in metro systems around the world. The station's outdoor center even has a whole large bus station, and it's much nicer than the city's central bus station. Now this hub is under construction with an expansion and even planned underground automatic bicycle parking lot. As a rule, the railroad runs away from the center of the city. It runs along the outskirts, sometimes separating Tel Aviv from neighboring cities, such as Ramat Gan. Almost everywhere the railroad runs side by side of the freeways. On one hand, this is a logical decision, because the railway as a freeway for cars is a barrier to the development of the city, which is difficult to overcome and cross. It can be compared with a river, but man-made and made of asphalt and concrete. This way you don't create problems twice, and save on new bridges and passes. Also, it would solve the land by park problem. No need to spend money and time on the redemption of private property. But on the other hand, it's a problem. Freeways with railroads are often located far away from dense urban areas. For freeways, this is a right decision, but for the comfort of public transportation, it's a problem. For example, I used to regularly travel from Rishon LeZion, and walking to the train is very difficult. It's a half-hour walk minimum. In the summer time, you can easily get sunstroke. That's why most of stations are made with parking lots for cars and bikes. But after 9 am you won't be able to find any parking lots. Fortunately, bus stops are made exactly opposite of the entrances to the station. At the same time, in Rishon, they are building a large district near the train station. In other words, the transport infrastructure increases the value of the land around it. In Tel Aviv, the station have also become a driver of development. Now they are building office and high-rise residential buildings. So, in general, investments in infrastructure are slowly starting to pay off. Here is another example: new and quickly growing city of Ashdod. This is a prime example of a station in the desert. On the one side is desert, on the other side is a field of asphalt and a shopping mall. All the houses are as far away from the station as possible. Please, don't do that in your city. One interesting fact. Because of the location of the stations along the roads, the railway website suggests waiting for the train at the closed part of the stations, where the ventilation system with filters and the level of dangerous gases is lower. The line from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem is one of the newest sections of the system. It's 56 km long and passes through the airport. This high-speed and first electric line has been built since 2005 and was launched only in 2018. Trains reach speeds up to 200 km per hour, so to straighten the road, many bridges and tunnels were built. Also, the city built an underground train station, 8 meters below the ground. There is nothing wrong with the accessible environment of the station, because it's in the center of the city and there are a lot of bus routes to almost all parts of the city and a tram line next to the station. Now about the stations. As a rule, they are all typical and planned as simply as possible. To enter, you have to go through the security theater, and remember, you cannot enter the station with balloons. Next come the turnstiles. Tickets must be validated at the entrance and exit, so I don't advise throwing away disposable tickets. Actually, all transport accepts local RAVGAV tickets, which can be personal or not. It works like e-wallet by default, but you can also record passes to different areas on it. It's cheaper if you have a round trip. Transfers inside the railroad system are free, like in the metro, but sometimes you need to switch to another platform. Some stations have ticket offices, but most likely you will buy your ticket from a ticket machine. It knows several languages, including Russian and English, and in some stations you can buy RAVGAV. There are also free toilets, chargers, pianos and synagogues at the larger stations. Smaller stations just have an emergency prayer box. If you are going to go on the last train, be sure to check the lobby timetable. Do not make my mistake and do not come in 3 minutes before departure to the closed door of the wrong lobby. It's quite difficult to understand the local roads, so instead of the official road map, I recommend the map by designer Konstantin Konovalov. But he also has a lot of trouble learning the system. There are stations where regular trains do not go, and some roads may divide from the regular roads. In general, the railroad is expected to be clear and stable, but here it fails. Trains, as a rule, run every 20 or 30 minutes, but I should tell you right away that you should be prepared for delays and cancellations. It happens here regularly. In general, I think there were only a couple of times when I came to the station and left normally. Moreover, I rode both during peak hours and on the last train. None of this guarantees that you'll get on time. Bad thing is that delays and changes are annotated only in Hebrew, and the scareboard and website aren't updated immediately. So I will give you some simple advice. If something is shouted from the speakers and people start to leave the platform or train in massive, just follow them and ask what is going at the same time. By the way, I have the same advice for the German railroads. Trust the group feeling. Wikipedia says that if a train is late by 30 minutes or more, the passenger is given one free trip between the same directions. And if the delay is 1 hour or more, 2 trips. But I personally haven't checked that. But the problems with reliability and logic fade away in front of the main problem of all public transport in Israel. It doesn't work on Shabbat, which means that nothing runs from Friday lunch to Sunday. During this time you can walk, bike or drive somewhere. I hope that someday politicians will find a compromise between religion customs and the comfort of living without a car. The trains have special cars for cyclists and kick scooters. There is just a lot of space without stairs. And that's all. Yeah, that's all. No bike mount for trains like in Europe. There are also toilets, sockets, curtains and small bags under the tables for trash. The informant goes mainly through the scareboard. There are very few audio annotations and it's very nice. In general, nothing is unusual, but it runs and works. Only one funny thing. There are special safes for controllers inside the trains. This is weird. Why you cannot store equipment at the station? But if you know the details, write about this in the comments. Also, because of the different trains and platform heights, there are big gaps almost everywhere. At the same time, the stations and trains themselves are adapted for people with limited mobility, but not for boarding. That's why it's not very comfortable to ride with bags or bicycles. So people with wheelchairs are carried inside on special elevators with the help of station staff. And by the way, one more fun fact, unlike the roads, railroads are left-handed. Perhaps this is a remnant of the British railroads. The local system reminds me a little of the Netherlands, where the railroad works like a metro system for a very large agglomeration. The trains run frequently. They're mostly commuting from home to work or from study to home. That's why they have more bikes in the country than residents. One bicycle to get to the station in one city and another one to get from the station to the office or university. But unlike the Netherlands, in Israel they decided to save money on paving the tracks. That's how they got the problem of pedestrian and bicycle accessibility. Plus, in Israel there is no coordinated timetable, so if the train is late, the bus won't wait for it. In the Netherlands, this seems to have been around for a long time in big cities. On a micro level, Israel's system also works on a multimodal system. Only, instead of bicycle, mostly everyone here commutes by car to the station. This can be fixed in the future, if urban planning policies of cities will change. They would need to turn development towards the stations by creating dense districts about 5 or 10 minutes from the platforms. By the way, something similar was done in Japan, where the transport operator was responsible for the development at the stations, and they created a lot of business districts around stations. Thanks to the good infrastructure, they increase the value of the land around, develop it, and the benefits are used to compensate for the very good infrastructure and further development. Well, it's time to sum it up. I hope the video is good and that you don't forget to like it. And subscribe to the channel, of course. This way you will not miss new episodes, and YouTube will offer you more interesting videos on this topic. At the same time, I remind you that under the video links to my Twitter and Facebook, so check it out, it's interesting. And a little life hack for those who have waited. If you're in Israel and decided to live near Tel Aviv, I suggest taking the bus express to Tel Aviv stations. It's cheaper than the trains, close to houses, and it's not stuck in traffic jams. Also, they're very bumpy, and I even got a little seasick. The railroads are nice and fast, but there is something wrong with the ticket menu. This was promised to be fixed, but at the time of the video release, my Jewish sense was pushing me to the bus stops to save shekels. It's not good to end a video about the country's railroads system by promoting everyone to take the bus, but this is life. That's all for sure. Love the cities and see you in the next videos. Bye.